Alright, time for chapter 3, and as mentioned, we clearly are stuck in the Ice Age.
We landed somewhere, from the looks of it, prehistoric. I was slightly concerned when Bentley broke out the dinosaur repellent, but that was the least of my worries. The crash landing had damaged the villains.
I'm just gonna say this right here. It's downhill for the villains, and it's downhill for... Okay, maybe it's not downhill for all the levels, but it just feels like it's downhill here for all the levels and concepts as a whole overall from here.
So the priority here, of course, is to find a way to repair the time machine and get the hell out of Dodge. And hopefully in the meantime, man things up with Carmelita.
Yeah, Jim, every time Carmelita shows up on screen, you always have some variation on ugh, or ah, or ee.
Because her story is annoying.
Let's just say that in the meantime they need some, time to stay away from each other. Sure,
it's a typical, oh, I'm going to constantly hate you and barely work together with you until, of course, inevitably, I see eye to eye with you. And it's just, for how
well,
the
I saw a worse example that came out the same year this game did.
Oh, look, it's not the worst example, but it is annoying. Especially when you consider that how much these characters have already been through together.
Sly Cooper and the gang in Clan of the Cave
Racc00n.
There we go, Raccoon.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Clan of the Cave Racc00n.
Anyway, this is the place where the frame rate tanks the most. Multiple times in the hub, since there are so many things, that are being loaded at the same time, you will get dips to 30 FPS constantly. It also doesn't have that it's one of the more complex hubs to travel to, very vertical. So using your paraglider with live is imperative.
I won't lie. I do feel like in video games, a level trope that does sometimes come off as a bit boring in comparison is often the caveman levels. Granted, maybe it's just me and I don't really have that much of a thing for caveman levels, but usually in time travel stories or whatnot, those levels in those games always feel a bit...
I really enjoyed the one in Bugs Bunny Lost in Time, to be honest. And the treasure here is an iron clockwork. Mind you, this is the best thing that you can have, because it allows you to see any models that you have not found in a level, potentially.
That said, though, weird. I thought it was implied that clockwork was sort of, a guy who existed a bit later, or at the very least,
they did mention that he stalked the Cooper since the dawn of since they existed and managed to roboticize himself in the process somehow.
Oh, exactly, but they always kind of implied that the whole roboticization thing became later as opposed to at the start.
No, remember, even in the photos of the people, raccoons, even the one that is the most ancient one, the one with the Egyptian ancestor, the clockwork is very still metallic.
Oh yes, it's in the Egyptian one. Well, I guess to be fair, they weren't around to figure out when he became roboticized. That's fine. Though given its caveman times, how was he able to do that with, the lack of technology?
Well, okay, for the original trilogy, I don't have an answer. I want to wait until the end of his game to give you my own personal theory on that. But for the time being, we need to collect the photos like Bentley just said, especially because part of the time machines were scattered and fucking penguins stole them, meaning that we need to get them. Also, speaking of clockwork, there he is. What the fuck are you doing there?
Clockwork, we got your eye.
It probably got a spare part.
You want it back?
Go ahead, Drover.
Tio, what are you... Oh, God.
Yes,
what are your thoughts on the bad guy of this particular zone?
I'm not... Okay, on entertainment value, it might be fine, but let's just say that there are some implications, and I just want to know Drover's opinion when he shows up.
It's like I said... The first two bad guys were definitely solid. Maybe not as good as bad guys from the original trilogy, but still solid and promising. I'm just gonna say this. Every bad guy from this point is problematic at least, or enraging at worst.
Okay, I don't think the villain of Part 5 is that kind of problematic.
Oh, okay. Let me rephrase. Lame at the very least.
I still disagree. I think the villain
Wait,
is
whoa.
actually...
You actually like that one, huh?
Yeah, I think she's on par with LF and to be honest.
I'll admit, you're one of the first people I've spoken to who thinks that.
Well, for that case, I will need to. Okay, well, to be fair, Jova, for a better opinion, probably for both of us, we'll need to ask what Thieves and Shearer will think of her. But that's too much foreshadowing.
She sucks.
Brilliant.
Okay, that conveyor belt does not belong here. The question is, what is it being used for?
There is clearly, as Bentley noted, there's clearly something that is not right, because the place has stuff like a primitive version of a conveyor belt and bizarre statues in the shape of someone. I wonder who that someone might be. So clearly stuff that should not be in this time, meaning that, what a coinkydink, our characters might have just found themselves stuck in another one of Le Parlock's schemes.
This is very contrived.
This is
because,
peak contrivance at its best.
Like, okay.
How is it a contrivance exactly?
Because
well, okay,
they ended up here very basically on an accident, and yet they managed to find the right time and the right place for one of these things.
Yeah, again, it has to do with how the time travel in this game works. Oh god, that penguin literally appeared and disappeared for drawing distance.
No, that's there you go. That's the no. Actually, it was because of the camera. We need to wait until he showed up.
Well, that's okay, he showed up, but then waddled a bit to the right.
Actually, it was inside the cave.
Don't look so bad to me.
Sly, I'm picking something up. Look for a building that resembles an arena, and let's take a closer look. My thermal vision is picking up a lot of activity there.
You got it, pal.
Here, it is pure and simple luck that the heroes just happen to show up where another one of Le Paradox's henchmen is, because this was an artifact that had nothing to do with anything the bad guys held. It was just something that Murray's had since Game 3. And trust me, given how the time travel works, we're lucky it took us to this particular time date, because the way the time travel works in this game is odd and not explained that well. Now the typical idea is this.
Okay,
oh, wait, hold on. Let's handle this first.
So he's got a
this is
complex.
The Grease. A grizzly bear, which is clearly based on African American ghetto stereotypes, voiced by Fred Tatasciore. Jova, please.
Well, I mean, I'll have to see how he acts.
Okay, as someone who's played this game, he's a base-breaking character. Either you like his gimmick, or you find it borderline racist sometimes. And look, I'm not going to say that was obviously the intent, but again, incompetence may have played a factor here, and they just really did not think this through. But ignoring that, I don't really care for his whole rapping shtick here and there, and honestly, he's one of the more... He's one of the more...
he will rap, don't worry, Lives.
Okay, look, and ignoring how annoying his gimmick can be or how problematic it can come up as, I just don't find him that interesting a villain, like his motivations or whatnot. Also, again, if the Paradox was setting out to destroy the Cooper lineage, I get it, but what he's having the bad guy do here is essentially making counterfeit cave drawings.
Yeah, we will explain. This actually will be explained later, Jova. But to be fair,
that's where that ancient aliens guy got that idea from.
It's just a thing that's happening at the same time. They're taking advantage of that.
That is my point, though. Of all the schemes, this one feels the least likely to work or really make that much of an impact.
we're dealing with here. Good job, Sly. Now head back to the hideout.
Hey, but I was going to say, in case some of you might not know what it means, and to be honest, there's all sorts of different meanings depending on the context. But I think I found one close enough to fiction. A device, especially in literary or artistic composition, which gives a sense of artificiality.
I hear you, pal.
Anyway, back to my point though. The time travel in this game unfortunately forces the plots to have contrivances. Not just on getting certain artifacts, but having those artifacts take us to the right moment in time, even though it's not necessarily consistent. Like, it's never explained. Does it take it to when that artifact was made? Because if it did, certain artifacts should, well, not really take us to certain points here and there, because it's stated that they were crafted years before we arrived to that certain point. Is it about who owned it or whatnot? Because if so, it could literally take us to anyone who's owned it. Does the machine just happen to know the time date that we need to go to with that? Like, again, it would have been so much simpler if they just said that the artifact works as at least, something like a field of time, or, gives you access to a range of time. But no, it's... so we can listen.
Also, there's Patrick Size as one of the guards. And yes, in case again, the design is clearly the same, at least very inspired by Ice Age, because we have mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and dodos. Which, to be fair, they are actually animals associated with, the climate of the Ice Age. But in terms of design, they are very strikingly similar to the ones of... I like the first one, and as a younger, I actually like the third one. But over time, I do believe that the first one is the one that's more salvageable, even then it doesn't have that much.
Okay. I've seen the first two, and I like them, but I have a confession. I have not seen any Ice Age movie past the second one yet.
The one after three are just pure garbage, no matter how you look. But go on, Dave.
But I'm going to be controversial. In terms of tropes in script writing and, well, fiction in general, contrivances, to be honest, don't really annoy me all that much.
Oh, well,
because,
yeah.
Because mainly because almost everything has some form of contrivance here and there. I mean, if I started hating contrivances, I might as well just hate all movies.
It's almost as if it depends on the situation, but
yeah,
the point
context is
the point instead is that the Grease has captured something in the meantime,
or someone.
Someone.
Missing links.
A prehistoric raccoon. Yes, an ancestors that the previous trilogy did never mention, which, to be fair, considering the timestamp, it's still relatively plausible. So it's, for one, it's the game taking something, kind of an original concept that still could work.
So what the ones we met on is ancestors?
No. I mean, the ones we met so far and the ones we meet after this are actually ancestors recorded in the previous Raccoons that the previous trilogy did mention and showcased also in the Vault, for example. This is a clear exception. Remember, the Vault was actually founded somehow by the Egyptian ancestor, Sly Cooper, So it was after this guy. So this guy is kind of like the progenitor or something.
For me, it's just...
Wait, hold on. Are we certain that the Egyptian one came after this guy? Because I'm sure that there could have been at least some room
in Egypt, the Egyptian civilization was, thousands of years after this place.
Well, Tio, my point is maybe there were ancestors in between the two.
Well, what I'm saying is, again, no, but this is still a progenitor, and Sly mentioned specifically in 3 that Sly Cooper was the one that discovered the place and founded the vault.
And you know what? To give him credit, this is actually a neat idea, seeing literally where it all began for the Sly Cooper lineage. The execution may not be the best, but it's fun. Hey, what's wrong, Tio? Take some pocket change along the way.
Go grab that tiger skin,
Yes, we're about to also get the costume of the third chapter already.
Okay, yeah, this costume I don't
This
care
is
for.
clear. Yeah, it's pretty much the lamest of a bunch, to be honest. You will see in a second.
Not really my color, but I'll make it work.
It's a
Also-
tiger skin.
Also, does this imply that the Grizz sort of mutilated one of his own henchmen
Probably.
and made a...
Most likely.
I thought for a second there, I thought he was attacked by a saber-toothed tiger.
Thankfully, no.
Okay, consider this, guys. We're in a world where most people are anthropomorphic animals, so if somebody has a fur coat, then that means that's kind of like the equivalent of, say, a human skinning another human and wearing their
get
skin
this,
as a suit.
the power up that this particular coat gives you makes no fucking sense. Just by holding it, Sly is able to like make these leaping, jumping, animations out of fucking nowhere. I don't like the other costumes. I could get their mechanics, but this one feels just odd.
It gives you a cyclone.
Maybe he inherited their power.
Like the franchise has proven time and time again that occult stuff is, a thing in here. So there is some suspension of disbelief to be had for sure. It's just that I just don't understand the logistics, the thought process. It's not like the costume itself, like we said, it's imbued in some jumbo, some evil mojo. Like that's usually the term they use for this kind of thing. No, because like just having it allows him to do that.
I know,
It also
looks
works
fun.
as a homing attack.
It looks fun, Lips, but it's very heavily contextualized in a sense that you're only able to perform it scarcely and only in specific spots. Compared to the other costumes, it literally gives you less options and it slows you down even more, especially compared to the Jailbird set, which at least gave you the rolling down option.
Imagine if Mario had a power-up like that. It would break the game.
Well,
I'm trying to think if you actually ever had something like this, like that.
He does, the cat suit. It also does that. Except here's the thing, with this power-up, you have to home in on stuff. With the cat suit, you can just do that stuff automatically wherever you wish. And it can also climb up on walls.
Mm-hmm. Obviously.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about this. You apparently need to lock on to things to have it work, and it's...
And the first ever cane of the Coopers is stolen as well. To be fair, in this case, he was already captured. There was not much he could do.
The guards on those pedestals are the ones restraining him, Sly.
And it can control exactly when they landed.
Looks easy enough.
Be careful, Sly.
The job didn't come after they took it.
Out there. This is a perfect situation.
How would that have made it worse or better?
Well, think about it, Jova. If they got there after, they would have much of a chance to find it, would they?
I mean, the chances are pretty much the same either way. The canes are being taken and stolen through time. Nothing.
Also, I jump cut for the purpose of, loading since I actually fall down.
Sure.
I don't know, this is hilarious.
Sure, yeah, it looks fun.
Might
Playing
as
with
well.
it is a bit different, though.
It's fair. It's much more fair when it's in terms of gameplay when it's applied to.
We go from
opening up
sneaking
the,
about to suddenly yeets.
I feel like the animation could have been better.
It works a bit better gameplay wise when you actually have to do it for challenges that involve hunting treasures down. So there is that at least.
According to them all, that cave raccoon is definitely your ancestor. I believe you found the very first Cooper.
So what,
honorable.
if he dies, the Sly will vanish from existence.
Well, honestly, if the Paradox had done that to any of the ancestors, Sly would vanish from existence.
And yeah, sadly this guy speaks in gibberish, so there are some subs, but again, all you need to know again is just the fact that something that the characters even repeat after it, so you don't really need, if you're not hearing properly.
That's the thing, though. Despite him speaking gibberish, his text is given in English, so...
Well, okay,
yeah.
to be fair, like I said, usually with this kind of dialogue, it's similar to stuff like Chewbacca, in a sense, when after he speaks, the other characters kind of like slightly repeat or summarize what he just said, for the sake of the audience.
Nah,
like I said, though, in this case,
gibberish.
it's just given in English subtext.
It's a double thing, yes, Vives?
I'm just gonna call this guy gibberish because that's how
Actually,
that's what the
no,
subtitle said.
Sly and the others gave him a name. Bob. Yes.
Yes.
Bob
Oh my god, that's
Cooper.
better.
Yeah, well, screw that. I'm calling him gibberish.
Alright, let's see what's his deal.
Bob the gibberish.
Where everyone took an immediate liking to him. And he took an immediate interest in our gadgets. While he was busy, Bentley provided the background on his former captor. The guy's name was Grizz, and he'd made his fame in the art world. Once a common street thug,
Mr. Grizz?
into the limelight when he was
I guess.
Maybe, sure, boy.
But somehow his art managed to found an audience, I guess.
It's like a furry version of the character from The Wiz.
But as time passes, the taste of people change.
Yeah.
Is this a metaphor for Zack Snyder?
He returned to his criminal roots, quickly becoming the top art thief on Interpol's
Well, he took it well, I guess.
One of Carmelita's main targets, it was now clear how he'd managed to evade her capture for so long. After we pried Bob away from Bentley's tools, he explained how Grizz had appeared and started harvesting all the pterodactyl eggs in the area, eliminating his role as food provider for the tribe and
Anyway, the deal with Bob is that he was a top hunter, but of course Grizz just fucking around meant that Bob was not anymore, and out of depression he got an eating disorder to boot.
Stole his prized club.
Kane.
Bob as a character is just there, I'm gonna be honest.
It's honestly the weakest of the ancestors for me. It's fine, it's
weird.
still fine, but you know, it's not really that memorable for
It's
with
such-
very nature.
It's such about a dissonance, going from one of the better ancestors to arguably the lamest of them.
That meant we had to get him back into climbing shape. Fast.
Thank you.
So yeah, do you want to see the next part where this game becomes Sly Cooper fitness in time?
Actually, you're not wrong, because next part we was gonna start with a Murray's personal training program to bring Bob back into shape. So look forward to that. Yes, we'll get also to that, Jova. See you for the next part.
See you then.
See ya.
Yeah.